So this is not the type of video I thought I would be recording for you guys this month. Honestly, it's my worst nightmare, but I am ready to talk about it. I want to tell you guys everything that happened. I know I mentioned in my last video when I was telling you guys about my frozen embryo transfer that I had sort of mentioned that it was successful so far. And I think I also had mentioned my HCG levels were kind of slow to rise. And I would be explaining in a future video about why I think that happened and maybe like more of the details behind my HCG levels. And I'll just explain that to you in this video. I was going to wait until into second trimester to start talking about the pregnancy, but since I no longer have this pregnancy, we will talk about it in this video. Yeah, I am so sorry to be giving you guys bad news. I've been sharing a lot of the details about our miscarriage in my Instagram story, and then finally a few days ago I did a post on what happened because a lot of you have gone through loss and grief before. I have not. I've been fortunate enough to never have lost anybody in my life yet close to me, and I have not had a miscarriage before. This is my first experience dealing with loss, so it was sort of in a state of shock the first week or so after finding out, and I had a D&C, which I'll get into as well. I had a D&C a few days after finding out that we miscarried, and so I kind of went into more of a hibernation mode for a week or so, like trying to process it all and what just happened. And now it's been actually exactly 2 weeks. Today's Wednesday, September 11th. Exactly 2 weeks ago Wednesday, we went to our 8-week ultrasound and found out that baby had passed away. And now that it's been a couple weeks, like I'm able to talk about it without completely breaking down. But of course, I'm still not over it. And I'm not even sure if I'll ever be over it. So a lot of people tell me that, but I think that as time passes, you heal and you can kind of move on a little bit better. And I have been finding out the more I talk about it with family and friends and also on social media now, the more I can accept it like in a healthy way and move on. So big advocate of myself talking about it. So I want to let you guys, my YouTube family, know what happened and kind of where I'm going to go from here. So just to back up a little bit, had our transfer July 26th. That went well from what we saw. Very magical day. If you guys haven't seen my previous video on our frozen embryo transfer day, I will link that one down below so you guys can check it out. And I go over the process of our frozen embryo transfer. And if you guys are looking at your first frozen embryo transfer and you want to know sort of what to expect, go check that video out because I explained basically the whole procedure. And it was the same exact thing as our first frozen embryo transfer 2 years ago when they transferred Quinn and me. So our frozen embryo transfer was July 26th. And then I had my first HCG draw 9 days later, which was a Sunday. And that initial HCG blood draw was very low. It was only 34.5. Because it was over 5, obviously 0 HCGs, you're not pregnant. And so because it was over like 5, they said, I am pregnant, I am considered pregnant, but they're looking for 40. So 40 is sort of their magic number. I'm not sure why 40. And so because I was on the low end for my HCG, they were telling me that they're still optimistic, but they're cautious. They're cautiously optimistic. So I left Seattle. I had my blood drawn in Seattle that day for my first initial HCG draw. We drove home. We made that hour drive back and I was basically in tears. I was like, it didn't work. It's super low. Like I'm not very hopeful. And Josh and I were pretty heartbroken at that point. Like we sort of were like, oh shoot, like maybe this didn't work. And I think it's because we were comparing our first frozen embryo transfer. Like with Quinn, I think I actually had my first HCG draw on day 10, not day 9. His was a slam dunk. First HCG draw was 244 right off the bat on day 10. And so I think I was expecting that, and this one was only 34. So I think it was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know that it really worked. But they said, okay, let's draw another HCG level to see if it's rising. So we did another HCG draw 2 days later, Wednesday, and that one did go up to 244, which is so funny. Like this 244 number with both of them. It's just kind of funny. So that gave us a lot of hope. It's like, okay, 244 is a good number. And they wanted to do one more HCG draw 2 days after that one just to make sure it's still rising. So that was Friday. So Friday had our third HCG draw, and there's a little caveat with that one because I did my blood draw a little bit too late. So the carrier had already picked up all of the blood draws for that morning, and so my blood draw was at 10:30 and he had come early like at 10 to pick up all the blood to process it. So I had to wait, since it was a Friday, I had to wait all weekend for my HCG result, which was really torturous. I was like, oh, this sucks. So Monday, that following Monday, at the end of the day too, they made me wait all day. At the end of the day Monday, I found out that that our third HCG draw had gone way up into the 900s. And I can't even remember what number it was. I think it was like 911, I want to say, but it was in the 900s. They were very confident that everything's fine. And so the next step was to wait for our 8-week ultrasound. And that speeds us up to August 28th was our 8-week ultrasound. So before the nurse even started the ultrasound, she said, I'm 7 weeks, 4 days, which is about what I was with Quinn on my 8-week ultrasound with Quinn. I think it was like 7 weeks, 5 days. So they start the ultrasound and right away I knew something was wrong. There was a gestational sac. The fetus looked pretty small, and there was clearly a fetus. I distinctively remember with Quinn on the 8-week ultrasound that the fetus was bigger. And so when she started the ultrasound, I knew something told me that it wasn't there. But of course, like your mind doesn't go there right away, but I was like, I knew. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope this isn't true. Like I hope that what I think I see, I don't see. But pretty quickly the nurse was like, oh guys, this doesn't look good. I'm not seeing what I want to see. And yeah, sure enough, there was no heartbeat. And the fetus was measuring too small for 8 weeks or 7 weeks, 4 days. And by the way, the gender is a girl. And the nurse moved around the ultrasound a lot to make sure that there was no heartbeat, just to make sure, like, just to 100% make sure that it was gone, that she was gone. So no heartbeat, and she went to measure the fetus, and it looks like she stopped growing at 6 weeks, 5 days, about 6.5 weeks, she stopped growing. And not sure when exactly she passed away, but probably pretty soon after that. And this whole experience is wild because I had no signs of miscarrying. I wasn't cramping, I wasn't bleeding. I had literally no physical signs that something was wrong. And so you fully expect to go to your ultrasound and see your baby. And when that didn't happen, well, we saw a baby, but nothing was there and no heartbeat. Measuring very small. It's a shock. I think a lot of people have some warning signs that they're miscarrying, cramping, bleeding, something like that, but I didn't. And so I was fully expecting a healthy fetus, healthy baby image, 8 weeks, and that didn't happen. So halfway through the ultrasound, I'm on my back and I'm looking at the screen, and Josh is sitting next to me. I can never undo the image of him with his head in his hands and just leaning over. He looked like he was in despair. And to see your husband, who's so strong, look like that is pretty wild and heartbreaking. Anyways, so after a few more minutes of imaging, she asked if we wanted a picture, and I said yes. And I was thinking, well, if I don't want it, I'll just throw it away. But I'm glad I have that picture of her, because it brings closure, on paper to me that she's not with us anymore. And then after the ultrasound, the nurse right away had to talk to us about our options on how to get rid of the pregnancy tissue, because clearly my body thought that nothing was wrong. There wasn't any signs on ultrasound that my body was trying to get rid of anything. And I think it's really because of all of the hormones that were pumping through my body, the progesterone oil shots, the vaginal progesterone, and the estrogen pills. Like, I had so many pregnancy hormones in my body that my brain thought everything was fine. I think that's one reason. So she's going through our options on how to get rid of the pregnancy tissue. I was having a very hard time concentrating on what she was saying because of the shock that just happened. Basically, there were 3 options. The first option was to just let my body get rid of it naturally with no medication. Second option was to let my body get rid of it naturally with medication. So they would prescribe me a couple medications that I would take orally to help induce cramping and basically like help my body get rid of it. And then my third option was a DNC, and that would be under general anesthesia, so it would be considered surgery. And so of course there's risks with surgery, but the benefits of the DNC is that it would be over quick, and not that anything's a guarantee, but I would get cleaned out like pretty thoroughly instead of letting my body try to do it. The benefit for the DNC as well is not only do I get rid of it fast, I don't have to live through all the clots and the bleeding for days and days. So she finished up her little spiel on all that. Our ultrasound was scheduled for 11:30, so by this time it was almost 1, so Josh and I were pretty hungry. We went to lunch, although my appetite was not very good at this point. We went to lunch and we were discussing the options and what just happened. Most of the lunch was kind of silent. I think both of us were processing. What the heck? As Josh and I were eating our lunch at our table, a couple sat down next to us with a newborn baby girl. I think life has a funny way of doing that to us. Yeah, I don't know why that had to happen, but that made lunch even harder because where they sat was literally the table in front of us, and the mom, you know, had her brand new baby girl in her arms. She was probably only a few weeks old. You guys are just gonna have to deal with Yuma with me. I think he's he knows something. This whole time since this happened, he's known something's wrong. He's a very smart dog. You've been through my whole IVF journey with me too, haven't you? Yes. You've seen me cry a lot. So we left lunch and thought about it some more that night. I had to work the next day, and I probably could have called in sick, but I desperately needed the distraction. So going to work was actually the best thing I could have done for myself. But what was really the deciding factor in getting the D&C was I felt pregnant and knew I wasn't. And that was mentally driving me absolutely crazy. I was trying to like process what just happened, but it was really hard for me to fully accept everything when I was still feeling nauseous. I was still super tired. Like, I felt pregnant in my first trimester, and I knew that baby wasn't there anymore. But in my mind, I was like, how can I live through all these pregnancy symptoms for days? Who knows when my body's gonna figure out to get rid of it? And how can I properly grieve and get past this when like I feel pregnant? So pretty much that night, I had decided the D&C was the best thing for me. I felt awful, number one. Number two, I just didn't think my body was gonna get rid of it very fast. And then when it finally decided it needed to get rid of it, I think it was gonna be a long, drawn out process for me. And honestly, emotionally and mentally, I probably couldn't handle it. So the next day was a Thursday. I was at work, and Josh, bless his heart, he's the best husband ever. I'm so lucky to have this man. It was a really, really busy day on Thursday at work. But I had told him that morning before I went to work, I said, if you have time, maybe you can call SRM for me, our fertility clinic, and tell them that we've decided to do the D&C. Bless his heart, that's what he did. He called that morning, and somehow, by the grace of God, they had a last minute opening the next day on Friday. And so they fit me in last minute the next day, Friday, and it was scheduled for 11:30. Apparently it took Josh quite a bit of back and forth messaging between my fertility nurse, my fertility doctor, the surgery center to get me into that slot that had opened up last minute. So everything was really fast. You know, we had our ultrasound on the 28th, and then I had the D&C on the 30th, and ended up being the best decision. It was very easy surgery. They were so nice. I had the best team of nurses and doctors working with me. And my actual fertility doctor was the one who did the surgery, which was like a bonus because I was able to talk to her for quite a while before I went into surgery, and she was able to answer my questions and basically just sort of talk to me about it. I forgot to mention too, the other bonus of having a D&C was I could opt for them to take a tissue sample from the fetus to send to the lab for genetic testing, just to make sure that the genetic testing on the tissue from the fetus matched the PGT testing on the embryo, because this embryo was genetically tested, but sometimes things could be missed on the genetic testing, the PGT. And so they highly recommend that we send a tissue sample just to make sure that nothing was wrong with the fetus. And by the way, I just got those results a couple days ago and nothing was wrong. So the tissue sample matched the PGT results of the embryo. And so chromosomally, genetically, everything was fine, which makes the situation even harder because it's like, well, why did she not grow after 6.5 weeks? What happened? You know, your mind automatically goes to, what did I do wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Maybe it's my fault. Maybe my body wasn't supporting her enough. You know, although I was asking my fertility doctor these questions, and she said, no, you looked good. Your hormone levels were good the whole time. Your lining looked good. Like, I guess sometimes we just don't have answers. We don't know. And that's kind of what I've learned from this miscarriage is, I guess I knew this before, but I didn't really know how much of a chance you take with frozen embryo transfer. It's not a slam dunk. I think his Quinn was such a slam dunk. Like, he was a day 5 hatching blastocyst. He was a day 5 BB. So he's pretty good quality, and he just took off. And this one was so touch and go from the beginning. I guess I just thought if you had a genetically healthy embryo and your grade was okay, then like it's gonna take. But what I'm finding out is the percentage is around only like 65% of a chance of it taking. And that's a day 5 embryo. A day 6 embryo, which is what this one was, is more in the 44-45% chance of it taking range, which is really not that great. And so I've really learned that even though your embryo could be like genetically tested and it's healthy genetically, has a good, the right amount of chromosomes, and the grade is like good to excellent, it still might not take. And it's just because that's just the odds. It just still might not take. A lot of times we just don't know why. And in my case, we don't know why, and we might never know why. We probably will never know why. But just sort of to back up, yeah, DNC took like 20 minutes and I woke up nicely. I was very relaxed. Everybody was super nice. I had a great anesthesiologist, really nice. And I came home and basically like napped the rest of the day. Just let the anesthesia wear off. And then it was done. And I had barely any cramping. I had a little bit of cramping that night. And then by the next day, I didn't have any pain or cramping. They did warn me, my fertility doctor warned me that I would be bleeding for the next couple of weeks, even up to 4 weeks. But now I'm into week 2. So it's been 1.5 weeks since my surgery and I'm just spotting now. So the first week after my DNC, it was like a period bleed every day. So very manageable and not a lot, just like, I would say like a steady period bleed. And now I'm in the second week and I'm spotting, and today I'm barely spotting. I think I'm pretty much almost done. And so yeah, overall very easy. Very glad I did the DNC. The other thing too was when they were taking my vitals before the surgery, I had a fever, not a full blown fever, but like low grade. It was like 100, like 99.9. And so they put me on antibiotics after the surgery. So it was the best decision. I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we did it. And now I can move on. I immediately felt better after surgery. Immediately. Even though I was a little bit groggy, I was already feeling less nauseous. And the next day I was feeling less nauseous. My energy was already returning by the next day. And as each day has gone on, I've been feeling better and better and better. And now a week and a half later, I still get a little tiny bit nauseous in the morning, like a little bit. But man, it's basically gone. My appetite's returning. I'm not like craving weird things anymore. Like I was like full-blown pregnancy symptoms a couple weeks ago, but my nausea is basically gone. My energy level, I'm still a little bit low on energy, but it's all returning and I'm feeling more like myself again. When they did the 8-week ultrasound, they drew a baseline HCG and my HCG level was 35,000. It was like 35,800. That's so high. I mean, no wonder I was feeling like pregnancy symptoms and stuff. And so they told me it would take weeks to months for my HCG level to go to 0. At first they said they were going to trend them, but my fertility doctor's like, you don't have to. It's kind of like watching paint dry on a wall. Like there's really not a lot of reasons to do your HCG. We'll just wait. And I think they'll probably do one in like a couple months or something, like when I start the process over again. So yeah, so I feel really good physically. I feel almost back to normal. I'm not sure what that feels like anymore, since I feel like I haven't felt like myself since before I got pregnant with Quinn, which I'll touch on in future videos. I do feel like maybe I went into this second frozen embryo transfer a little too soon after having Quinn, but I thought it was the right thing to do. Anyways, that's a whole separate video. Anyways, that brings us to now. I'm clearly not over it, but every day I feel like I'm getting past it and able to like move on. I'm feeling physically so much better, which is helping me to mentally move on. And I mean, Quinn is so busy. He's 18 months and he's got his own set of issues that we are busy with. So he is a really good distraction. And I just have to like keep reminding myself that this happens. I'm also trying to prevent my mind from thinking I'll never have another baby. We have one more embryo. This will kind of lead me into the next topic of our future plans. We do have one more embryo. This embryo is the same as the one that was just transferred and we lost. It's a day 6. Hatching blastocyst BC. I am gonna wait on our final transfer. I need to make sure that like I'm fully ready this time, that I'm not rushing into anything, that like I am ready physically, mentally, emotionally, you know, as I've mentioned before, I'm still kind of getting over the trauma of having Quinn because it was a pretty traumatic labor and delivery and a pretty rough postpartum. I know that was only last year, 2023 is when I had him. And it is so true. You see, probably a lot of you guys have seen on social media, there's like a little quote or saying going around that it takes 2 years, at least 2 years for a woman's body to recover from childbirth. And I'm only 18 months out. So 18 months is totally enough time to do another embryo transfer and get pregnant again. A lot of people do it. But I think in my case, my body wasn't ready. I thought it was, and my fertility clinic was like, yeah, you're ready, but maybe it wasn't. And maybe mentally I wasn't ready yet either. You know, there's a lot of like, you know, hindsight's always 2020. You look back and you're like, maybe I was too fast. Like maybe, and not that that would be the reason why she didn't grow. Could have been a lot of other reasons. I just have to tell myself, this is part of how I can move on. I have to tell myself this was clearly not the right time. And I just have to hold on to hope. And so for for our next frozen embryo transfer, our final one. We only have one more embryo. I'm gonna wait until 2025, so get through the new year, and then I'm kind of playing around with the plan of spring of 2025. And Josh is on board with whatever I decide to do. But I'm thinking around April or May timeframe, and that'll give me plenty of time to get healthy again. I'm actually reaching out to my naturopathic doctor that I used for years before I even started IVF to try to get a cycle, try to get a normal period, and she helped me tremendously before I even started IVF. So I've reached out to her again, and I have an appointment with her on Friday to brainstorm with her on how I can physically get healthy again, how I can maybe even have a natural period, because I haven't had one postpartum. And to nobody's surprise, because I just wasn't regular anyways, even before Quinn, which is why I have to do IVF. But maybe I can actually get a cycle, maybe even a regular cycle, and just how to get myself back to baseline health again. And then working, of course, mentally, still doing my somatic therapy, just working on myself in that regard. But it's gonna be a while before we try again. I just turned 38 on July 28th, and so that's bothering me that I'm getting old. But I know I have time as well. I have some time, and so I want to give it my all this next frozen embryo transfer, that like I want to be fully prepared and know that I'm prepared before we try again. So now that I'm feeling good again, I've been enjoying cooking most nights dinner, and just getting back into my like fertility smoothies, fertility bowls, fertility boosting foods, getting back into my workouts. I have some fitness goals in mind, and that has been so fun to focus on that again. Here goes my health and fitness journey again, and to get myself healthy again. And so this leads me into telling you guys that I am going to be starting a series of videos on how I'm recovering from loss and how I'm getting myself healthy again, because I think this is a topic that has not really been touched on YouTube. I think a lot of people don't want to talk about their loss and don't want to talk about like moving on, and it's hard to talk about all this online and just in front of an audience that you've never really met before. It's hard to talk about all this stuff, and so but millions of us go through loss, and so I want to make videos now on how I am dealing with loss and how I'm moving on in a healthy way and how I'm getting myself healthy again. And so I'm really hoping to do more than one video a month. I'm hoping I can do 2 videos a month, because I have so many things that I want to do to get healthy again and to help myself recover from this loss and the grieving process. So more to come on that as well. So I'm very excited for future videos with you guys, and thank you for listening. Thank you for all of your love and encouragement. As always, you guys are the best. And those of you who have gone through the same thing or are currently going through the same thing, I don't know what to say. There's nothing that I can say to help you guys feel better other than I know what you're going through. It's a lot, and you don't know what it feels like until you go through it. And now that I've gone through it and I'm going through it, I can relate to a whole different group of you guys. More of you guys probably, because now I can relate to all you guys going through IVF, infertility, and now loss, because unfortunately it does go hand in hand. I need to go pick up Quinn from daycare and start dinner. So give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, because it does really help support my channel. I will see you in the next one, and it'll be a happier video of how I'm getting healthy again, moving on, our future plans, and that's what we need to focus on. That's what I have to focus on. That is hope, faith, and exciting future plans. So I'll see you in the next one, and of course, always remember to be kind to yourself.